I want to make $1 billion.
Eduardo Braniff, a leading expert in branding and brand development. He worked with brands like Ford Motors, Aston Martin, Samsung, Coca-Cola, and numerous others.
Bye.
His focus is consumer and brand strategy.
Belonging is genius marketing. Gucci. Innovation, I hate the word. So what do you want?
Hi guys, welcome to Enigma of Success. Before we start our amazing conversation with this expert with a big E, this amazing person that I call a friend, Eduardo Braniff, who has so much knowledge and is going to share with us. If you like our channel and the content that we post, please subscribe. It helps us a lot. It helps the channel and also gives us purpose to keep going and knowing that you like it. So please hit that subscribe button and like and comment. Let us know what kind of guests you'd like to see. And let's start. Eduardo, thank you so much for being with us.
Such a pleasure
oh my
to
God,
be with you.
Such a pleasure to have you.
Yes.
I want to start with a little quiz.
Oh my goodness, of
It's going to be very simple. I'm going to give you two brands. They're rivals.
Ooh.
And you're just going to pick based on your personal taste or what you think is better in terms of branding.
Okay.
Whichever one. Nike or Adidas?
One,
Or
Nike.
Apple or Microsoft?
Apple.
Mercedes-Benz or Tesla?
Tesla.
Coca-Cola or Pepsi?
Coca-Cola.
McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's.
Amazon or Walmart?
Amazon.
One in here is just a personal brand.
Okay.
Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla?
Thomas Edison.
Instagram or TikTok?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Good. Instagram.
Okay. Well, I have to ask you why you hesitated.
The hesitation was that on one level, I find TikTok the much more dynamic experience, but there's still something about Instagram that, and I say this very judiciously, trust more.
I almost feel, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but it kind of feels to me that it's gonna last maybe longer.
Well, I mean, any platform that that is running into political issues is something that you might want to sort of have a little caution around. And yet it's still incredibly fun. I mean, you could say that like a drug as a brand, not necessarily pharmaceutical, that's,
right.
running afoul of certain like regulations and whatnot. But Instagram just feels a lot more steady, stable, like I'm getting into less of deep water with Instagram.
Ferrari or Lamborghini?
Oh, Ferrari.
I knew it.
Of course.
Agree. Energizer or Duracell?
Energizer.
DC or Marvel?
DC and Marvel, gosh, I do not know much about either world, so I'm just going to say Marvel.
And pissed off a bunch of people.
It's totally half the world.
But funny, I'm the same way, so I have no idea. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Sotheby's or Christie's?
Sotheby's.
Twitter or X?
Neither.
I want to ask you about this whole rebranding thing that happened. At first, when I heard that, I was like, oh, it kind of, and then I kind of thought about it. And I thought, well, maybe there's something to it because, if someone new is coming in and they kind of have to change a lot or feel that they have to change a lot, maybe the change of name also has to follow. Well, I mean, what's your take on the whole thing?
I mean, I think where I would start from is maybe setting at least my definition or working assumption of what a brand is. And to me, a brand is a promise to deliver against a set of values consistently. And what happens with consistency is trust. So in a sense, if you were to collapse that, it's like a promise to be trustworthy. In the case of Twitter versus X, I lost all trust the moment it became the prerogative and the project of a single person. In the realm of Twitter/X, I don't understand what Elon Musk's values are. I also haven't experienced any set of consistency. Granted, there hasn't been a lot of time yet, but if the one thing that has been consistent is how erratic it has been. So when I look at that face-off, Twitter versus X, I lean to Twitter because at least I have had a sense of what their principles were and what their values were.
In terms of social media in general, but more so Twitter, to me personally, it's kind of hard to pinpoint the brand. You know what I mean? Like, yes, of course, the tweeting bird, I get it, blue, like all that is cool. But as you're saying, the set of values, because it seems to me that they're working with a town square kind of thing online. But how much can that be a brand? You know what I mean? Like, in reality, it sort of seems to be a place where everybody can express their opinions, and we can argue, not argue, or talk about like how much you could express then or now, or what has changed. But where's the brand in that?
I think the brand exists in, the rules that it follows, the transparency that it employs, the spirit with which it goes into the world and becomes a tool to become this town square. You could be a town square where people are walking the dogs and holding a balloon and licking an ice cream, or you can be a town square where there is the spring uprising. So understanding what your intent of that town square is I think where the brand starts to flourish. Now, you're absolutely right in saying that, once a brand is sort of released into the world, and in the case of social media, where you, the user, is the product, is where the brand starts to get much bigger than itself. Instagram is nothing but a feed of empty boxes until you post a picture, I post a picture, I bring another friend. Twitter is an empty town square until you and I show up in it and start tweeting or Xing or whatever the verb is called now.
It's interesting that you said that we are the product. Because I never thought about it that way, but really it's kind of like they're all about that. YouTube is about that.
Oh yeah.
Because the idea behind all of them, and probably YouTube more than anybody else, I would think, is that the creators are the driving force, and thus the products that the people consume. And same with Instagram, of course, with those famous Instagram famous people that become famous on Instagram. But how much of that? Because if you are a product, you kind of you market yourself.
Yeah, and this has long been the debate or fight within social media, is that what rights do we have? We're being given a platform to use for free that has all sorts of bells and whistles. So all of the programmers are saying, well, the product is also the platform and what you can do on it and with it and whatnot, so that on Instagram or TikTok, you can use a camera and put filters and put text and all that sort of stuff. Yes, that's part of the product. But again, really it is who we are seeing and what they are doing that is the product. And so the debate has always been about what rights do we retain and control. And the platforms will say, well, you're getting all of this for free, so we should get you in exchange.
Right.
And then what you define as you is where it gets interesting. So that you can track me, that you can see who I like, who my friends are, what you can deduce from everything that I've posted, and then therefore what you can kind of package up and sell to an advertiser and say, we're going to reach 1 million Katias. You should market the latest, Marni bag.
Right. Speaking of bags.
Oh,
funny that
what
you
a segue!
brought it
I love
up.
it.
Oh my God! How did you know?
You're welcome.
Oh my God! You're perfect. I'll have you every single time. Please come.
I'm available.
It's funny that you say that in terms of bags, because I was in a street retailer. I'm not going to name the name, but I was just walking, checking things out, and I have a lot of respect for that particular one for a lot of different reasons. Not going to get into it because I don't want to name them, but The amount of luxury bags that I saw in that store, meaning women carrying with them, was insane to me. And I caught myself thinking that maybe 10 years ago, I would not have seen this. Or maybe I didn't notice. That part I'm not sure. I was interested in other things, looking at people's purses. But I caught myself thinking, and of course I'm passing a judgment and I don't know their financial situation, but I think I can deduct pretty accurately that this is not the top 1%. And yet everybody is carrying a purse that's at least $3,000 to $5,000. Is that a genius marketing, or what is it?
Well, belonging is genius marketing. And any product, service, experience that makes you feel like you belong is catering to a very deep-seated human desire, which is to feel included, like I belong here, whatnot. Luxury is a particularly robust category, and a bag is a very quote-unquote easy thing to use to signal, I belong. I belong because I have this much money. I belong because I have this level of taste. I belong because I've bought into the Hermes, Vuitton, Dior, Chloe way of being.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but that's precisely my question. You belong if you can sustain, right, that lifestyle.
Sure.
But if you can only afford one bag, you're not really belonging in a sense that I'm getting from what you're saying.
Sure, it sort of devolves or evolves from belonging as just, is it participating? Is it you're of the moment? Is it you are filling a void? I find the luxury bag market so incredibly fascinating.
Me too.
Because it's so, let's be clear, like the cost of that bag and the premium that is put on top of it is insane.
Exactly.
Insane. And, there's the bag that's like very of the moment of the trend that in a year or two will no longer be, so you're going to buy the next one. Or there's the bag that says to the world's boom. So the Birkin, the Kelly, certain Gucci bags, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the bag that, in this moment of now quiet luxury, where you're not supposed to exactly know, but feel and infer that this person has spent a boatload of money on the very basic navy leather thing. But people still like to signal. People like to have a uniform. People want to have those artifacts that say, I've gotten to this place.
Isn't it funny that you use the word uniform? Because on one hand, we want to stand out and be different from others. And yet you say uniform, and I completely agree with you, because that's conforming to a certain, people want to be part of that, and they feel more comfortable being.
Totally. I mean, it goes back to being a teenager. Like, you're either rebellious and don't give a about what anybody says, or you're the one who's having a drink and vaping and, have a TikTok feed and doing the dance because that's what everybody else is doing. So again, this sort of belonging, signaling continuum is where a lot of brands exist and thrive, especially luxury. I mean, and luxury in all categories, like leather goods, fashion, automobiles, jewelry, travel, where, you went on a trip to Milan. Where did you stay?
In Milan, actually not in a super expensive place. You mean like a hotel?
No, it's, that's very quickly certain questions that come up.
Yeah.
Where did you stay? Or did you go? Or did you do these things? Because there's a shorthand, there's code in, were you here? Or how far off from here were you? And it's like, doesn't matter. I had a great time in Milan and met these amazing people.
Right.
Luca took his first step. That's the trip.
Exactly. And I actually get that part, because that was always there. Belonging to a certain club, like trying to go up the ladder for whatever reason. That makes sense still, because whatever people are trying to achieve certain goals, trying to get somewhere, I get that part. Those social circles, they still exist.
Sure.
So a certain girl that bought herself that Louis Vuitton bag is not going to speak the same language as those people that have been to Milan such and such, dined here and there, spoke and had coffee with this particular person and stuff like that. She's still not going to be anywhere close to that. And yet, she still wants desperately to get that piece of. So I'm almost wondering, from the point of the brand, are they actually selling more bags to girls like that than that 1%? Is it that genius marketing where let's make everybody want to be that? They're never going to be that, but let's give them something where they feel, I'm almost there, kind of.
Well, I think one thing to be really careful about is if that person who bought the tiny little Vuitton clutch, because that's what she or he was able to afford, and they walk out of there feeling so happy because they have their bite of the Vuitton apple, God bless them. And really, God bless the brand that can exist for that wide of a swath of people, because there are so many people who are very wealthy and affluent and who can have not one but 1,000 Vuitton bags, and they have the suitcases and they have everything, and they shop privately and they go to the runway show and they buy everything off the runway. They're okay with everybody else alongside them also having Vuitton, because him or her having it doesn't matter, because they're in their own world.
The only thing is that a lot of the times when people buy that something, and we'll actually talk about it later also in relation to that sort of the whole manipulation of marketing, but a lot of the times people do not find those vitamins of happiness once they made the purchase. And then it kind of becomes an empty promise.
Of course.
So what you're saying, I completely agree with you. If that thing, whatever it is, an ice cream or a Louis Vuitton little purse, made you happy in the moment and you enjoyed it and you've never regretted it, by all means, it's a free market, and who am I to?
Right.
But I'm wondering, those others have been manipulated into wanting something, and then when they got it, they're like, wait a second, but the vitamins I was promised.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's where marketing comes into play. Like, the brand is, Vuitton or Hermes. I mean, Hermes being one of my all-time favorite brands for a whole host of reasons, from their originality. They don't follow anybody. I mean, they do their own thing. They have always done their own thing. They don't care if you walk into the store and let's be frank, they're oftentimes very snooty.
It's the marketing of humiliation.
Or it's the marketing of confidence that this is who we are.
What I was saying is this whole idea, I mean, you call it confidence, I call it marketing of humiliation, because it seems like not only you have to make a certain number of purchases to be worthy of Birkin or a Kelly, but once you sign up and you pick a bag, a lot of the times you do not get the bag that you picked. They bring you something else, and people have talked about it multiple times, and I think it's kind of obvious that they're doing it on purpose, not that they really do not have the bag, or maybe they could have you wait another week and just got you the bag that you wanted. Or plus, they're producing them. You can produce, a little extra. So that whole concept, which is working amazingly, I get it, but it is kind of unique. I don't think that any other brand is using it to such a degree. This is like a complete. Do you think that's what made Hermes what it is? Because there are a lot of brands that are equally respected, like Etro, or a bunch of them, Cucinelli, like you name it, but yet they're not as world famous as Hermes.
I mean, let's start with the fact that Hermes has over a century of making leather saddles, and brands that have that heritage are, are in a league of their own. And so that's why Vuitton with the steamer trunks, or even Cucinelli, which is a relatively new luxury brand, but the whole story of him and the town and that kind of craftsmanship. There's something as inhuman as Hermes can be to people sometimes. It's a very human-based brand. It's like, or cut across all of the fashion brands that have couture, and all of those people in their little white smocks and their hand stitching, paillettes onto a gown. Like, there is a human hand behind that artifact. Now, in the case of Hermes, great twists of fate and fortune that Jane Birkin and her association to the bag and the Kelly bag, and but the theme is that they're still being imbued by great history and great persona. There's people, the peoples keeps coming up in these brands. And again, ironic thing that for Hermes, that the person, there's all this sort of history and tradition and craft, but then they're also like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? The perfume is over there. Maybe you can buy the perfume, And so they might be unique in that sort of cultural, without putting a judgy word on it, their culture is that, and people buy into it. And people maybe want that. There's also something about the levels and how do you get the bag, and the wait list of 1,000 years or whatever is also that's creating mystique and access. And back to that thing of belonging, it's like it's hard to belong at Hermes and really belong at Hermes. But once you do, and you've kind of like leapfrogged out of it, because it's like, I don't need any of these other signaling gestures that brands make. By contrast, there's all the brands that make it possible, as I said earlier, that make it possible for you to buy the perfume, buy the watch, buy the sunglasses, buy the smaller bags, and those who are in their rare air and sitting front row at whatever brand couture runway show, and walking out with orders. Like, I think that's something, part of the magic and the business magic of luxury. Call them sort of more broad luxury brands that say.
But in terms of branding, and you're obviously a branding expert, so that's why it's fascinating to talk to you about it specifically. It kind of seems that any product that you're trying to brand and market, there is some sort of intrinsic value in the product, right? And the question is, in a way, how much value is there in relation to the demand and the price point of that item? The price point and the value, besides the history, the personal, the person making it, does not really correspond. And some other brands, maybe not fashion brands, would be altered if they attempted something like that, where the value and the price would be so, you know what I mean, the value of making it. I'm speaking specifically just the value of manufacturing. People would boycott, not buy, but with fashion, it's almost like a separate animal and almost feels like it follows different marketing rules.
Well, it's following, so another sort of like definition category. It's like there's the brand, there's branding, and then there's marketing. And the brand, think of it as the essence. Before Hermes makes a bag, they've got maybe if you could back up and say there's like just a culture or an ethos. And that's the thing that's going to be sort of universal. Then there's the branding, which is like the logo this year is a lowercase h and it's blue and the stores are all a certain way. And then there's the marketing of like, this year our marketing is all about clouds, or it's all about fantasy or whatever. So back to the question, fashion is where brands are it's just a whole nother universe, because so much of what we put on our person I am wearing this brand. I'm wearing this thing. It triggers psychology, triggers personal worth, triggers like where I operate in the world. It signals hard work, no work, beauty, not beauty. It's so bound up in stuff. And you could argue that all brands do that. Like, am I having a Starbucks or am I having an Enigma coffee? What does each of those say about me? But that experience, as vital as it is to my everyday of getting going or connecting with friends, is a little less sort of on me than a fashion brand. So when we get into value and worth or value and cost, yes, fashion goes through the roof. You know, you could also say automotive, but you can sort of see there's a lot of machinery in that car that merits a price. Or in jewelry, I mean, it's how much is the price of gold today, and how much did that, flawless diamond cost, plus the brand value, plus. Being able to, I think a really successful brand, again, in that fashion continuum, is the one where everybody sees it feels good about the price they're paying for the value that they're getting back. So to the young woman or man who spent a lot of money to get the little bite of Vuitton, if they feel good about it, and again, they get their vitamins from it, great. If the pursuit of the bigger or the next or the more or the other brand, or even worse, that then 2 years from now they're still carrying the bag and people are like, you're off trend, you're out of, Gucci, last Alessandro, when he came out with all the embroidery and the snakes and all that look that was very sort of African street wear. I mean, that damn snake was everywhere, and you felt until it was over. Yeah. And then you were like, oh, you're still wearing the snake? Like, brr. And that's an interesting, that's a fashion brand that is pursuing a very particular, they are chasing the dragon, on trend.
But you know what's interesting? To some people, everything that you just said, bear with me what I mean, goes completely over the head. They don't even understand, was it in fashion, was it not in fashion? They're so detached from this whole situation. And they might be wearing Gucci or not wearing Gucci, or not Gucci. But I'm saying they're just completely, and then there is another group of people like Zuckerbergs of the world. The only thing he wears is a black t-shirt.
Right.
And he can buy the whole damn Gucci if he wants to. I mean, I don't know if the conglomerate is gonna sell it to him, but you know what I mean. And he doesn't care at all. So it almost like there are groups of people, almost like little communities or large communities, where something is important and valuable, but in a way, it's universally and not universally at the same time. You know what I mean?
Great brands then become culture. And they come from a culture and they become culture or create cultures. So there are those people that are Gucci, or Italian, or quiet luxury, or anti-brand, unbrand. Like I don't want anything on my person signaling or advertising or marketing. Like and everything that I own is hyper original because I got it here, I customized it there, I express it X, Y, and Z ways. And on the subject of cultures, this is something for me that I've always been very focused on in the branding world, and is that I have this sort of harebrained idea that the HR departments and the marketing departments of big brands should be the same. Because especially in this day and age where anybody can be on social media, be in direct dialogue with a brand, you've gone from brand being this line that separates the consumer from the producer to a circle that includes them all. So if I go to work for X, then
By
I'm
X,
saying
you mean Twitter?
If I go to work for Twitter X, then I'm saying something about myself to my world. Like I stand for something, or I don't. But if I go to work for JetBlue or Virgin versus British Airways or Emirates, those two things say different things. So that alignment and that proximity of the people who are in the brand and the people who are buying or consuming the brand becomes that much closer. So this idea of understanding everybody who works for a company, who arguably have come to work to that company, setting aside salary and benefits and all that sort of stuff, because they're aligned with those values. They want those they want to make a promise of those values through their work, through themselves. So why is HR and marketing totally different if you've got your case study, your focus group working directly for you?
But do you really think that, let's say, stewardesses who apply to work in Emirates versus British Airways really consider those jobs based on the values that those companies?
Absolutely.
Or more like I want to fly to those locations?
I mean, of course, that's part of it. But more and more, and certainly as you move down the generational continuum, years ago, there was a lot of research on the fact that you would ask people, if you had a job that aligned with you at a values level but paid you X amount less versus this company that was going to pay you X amount more, a meaningful majority went to work for the company that they were values aligned with. Because more and more, you realize that your job, how much time do you spend doing it? If you're doing something that doesn't fulfill you, then why do it?
Well, especially now, I think people more and more care about their well-being.
Sure.
Kind of, consider that when they apply for a job, or in general, kind of looking for things to feel happy, to feel fulfilled, which I think is amazing. That finally we're shifting from survival. I think it's the new generation that's much more thinking in those terms because they have more opportunities.
They have more opportunities. We have more language around what these values. Again, like I'm going to go work for a place that where my blood, sweat, and tears are going to something I believe in beyond the paycheck and the benefits. And especially now with gig economy and I can make ends meet driving Uber or DoorDash or whatever it is. Those brands are coming into their own sort of problematic places because of how they're trying to squeeze the drivers and et cetera, but we live in a world of abundance of understanding and language, abundance of media, abundance of connection, abundance of misunderstanding, abundance of all negative stuff as well. But it makes sense that younger generations would say, yeah, I'm not feeling this. It's not a vibe, so I'm not going to work for you anymore, and I'm not going to help you make money.
You're saying abundance of a lot of things, which is so true, and not just abundance. Almost sometimes you feel suffocated by the amount of things.
Absolutely.
The messaging that you're getting constantly, the advertisement. They say
the content.
Yes, statistic tells us that it's between 250 to 5,000 messages we're confronted with every single day. I mean, first the question becomes, if you're a brand, how do you stand out?
My very personal answer is going to be echoing the same theme, like delivering against the promise of your values and being consistent in what you do. Apple is consistently pushing innovation. I hate the word. The pushing technology, pushing accessibility, pushing design, pushing complete experiences. It's just, I never, ever doubt Apple. I might not jive with the thing. I don't have an Apple Watch. It feels a little too invasive, but I know that's going to be the best of the category. I walk into the store at the Grove, and it is a work of art. It is a work of art, and I know that every person in there is from okay to really excited to work there. I know my question is going to be answered. I know that it is the technology. It is seamless, and it's the epitome of simplicity. Minimalism takes us into a very particular category because there's a warmth to Apple that minimalism doesn't necessarily convey. But
I know what you're saying. Clean, everything is like, yeah.
you know, in the same way that I know that when I go into Hermes, as much as I love every single damn thing in that store, I'm going to catch some attitude. And I might walk out of there being like, God damn it, why? And yet I still love what they stand for. I was like, I'm going to be surprised when somebody's very nice to me or realize that I've spent more than I should have at this store over time.
That's reverse psychology.
Yeah.
When they're nice to you, that's when they got you.
Yeah, exactly. These experiences where you start to feel a culture, where you start to feel a sense of belonging, not necessarily with the other people who have it, but with the people who are it, who are, I don't think I'll ever necessarily hang with the geniuses of the Genius Bar at the Apple store, because I don't know from, other than Reboot, it's
right.
like I don't know any of the stuff, but I know that there is a group there. I don't know who to hang with at Twitter X.
There is a limited set number of values, meaning like big important things that you can associate with. Sure. Everything else becomes really a preference. You know what I mean? Because value is such a heavy word, where people fall into, of course, certain categories and certain groups, but it's a limited number of components to that.
Sure, but values. Yes, values is a big word. It starts to get you into philosophy and religion and the way of being in the world. And in the branding space, you get to be a little bit inventive. Of a value doesn't have to be truth. It could be, we have the best damn time every day. Mm-hmm. And if you're, a sports brand, you could be, we have the best damn time every day as a value, or you could be, we win at all costs. And it could literally be just those two things, and it could be the same tennis shoe, same sneaker, but that sneaker from we win at all costs is probably, you can already picture that shoe. It's badass. It's got all sorts of bells and whistles on it, and and that everybody who works there is jacked, and they're counting calories and are leaving at 3 because they're going to go run 14,000 miles. Whereas we have the best damn time every day. There's maybe a pink shoelace, maybe we had a cupcake. Let's go hang. But they're both shoes. And so suddenly, I hopefully convey the sense that there's a sense of a brand and values, but then there's also a sense of a culture. And neither is better or less than the other. It's just, I'm more of a cupcake shoe, and you're more of a 14,000 miles a week.
A lot of times people have trouble communicating what you call values. Mm-hmm. Into the product and the marketing of that product. Do you have any advice
Sure.
how people can do that?
Well, a lot of things to say there. First and foremost, no amount of brand or marketing is going to make a bad product good. So you've got to have a great product. Out of the box, the product is not going to be what it is in 4 years' time. It's naturally going to evolve, partially because of what you learn, partially because of what the market tells you, partially because of whatever pivot you might want to, take. I mean, listen, in Instacart, after many attempts going public, one goes public yesterday, and we know Instacart is the people who go shopping for us during the pandemic. Actually, their business model now is selling advertising on this app and delivering technology to grocers. So where they started is not where they are right now. In terms of the, quote, difficulty is, when I work with clients, I always start with where you started. What motivated you to start enigma or this coffee. I mean, you guys started escape rooms, and then you're now in the coffee business, and then you're going into sort of a motivational, content play. Yeah. But even from the escape room, I could spend an hour with you and figure out some basic principles or basic values that would drive your brand forward. Over time, you want them to become fairly consistent. You want them to be as locked as they are at Hermes. But they can evolve. I mean, again, Uber as a brand, Lyft as a brand, radically different. Same exact story. Mm-hmm. Uber, at all costs. Lyft, we have purple mustaches on the car. Thankfully, that marketing and branding ended. But
who on earth came up with that idea?
Somebody who at some moment had a branding idea that hopefully was coming off of some brand value or brand principle. Like they might have looked at Uber and said, these guys are intense. Let's not be intense. Whatever cues or brands you guys looked at when you were creating the coffee part of the brand experience, you were probably looking at some other cues, whether it was like, we don't want to be like Starbucks, or we want to, because of the way we are, want to create this type of experience. At the end of the day, it's like it's a business. Like, what's the thing that's going to sell? But once you've started to figure out the thing that's selling, very quickly you can catch up the brand to it.
So a lot of people ask us, how did we start Enigma Coffee? We, at 2015, opened another business called Enigma Escape Rooms before Enigma Coffee. Between 2015 and 19, we had about 90,000 people come through the building and did the experience. And in the midst of the craziest of times, in 2016, I went downstairs just to throw the trash. And there was a homeless guy hanging out there, Lens. And that day, like every day, I said, "Hi, Lens, how are you doing?" And he said, "Yoni, let me ask you a question. What are you guys doing upstairs?" Like, it's very hard to explain, but basically, it's like Indiana Jones in real life. And I'm like, "Why are you asking?" He goes, "Well, I just want to let you know that you're making everybody so happy. They're standing here for an hour in the parking lot and talking about the experience." I'm like, "For an hour?" The next morning, we called the landlord and said, "Hey, we noticed you had a space available in the middle of the building. We want to do a coffee shop there." He said, "You need a corner unit. So if you want to do a coffee shop, do it right. Trust me." We're like, "Well, there's a tenant in the corner unit." So he had moved the tenant from the corner unit to that middle unit, remodeled it, they were super happy, and an adventure started. So I called my friend and I said, "Hey buddy, do you know a company like that who's going to give me a free equipment?" He goes, "The first thing to do is to have a really good espresso machine. You need a La Marzocco." I Google La Marzocco and I call, and a nice lady answers the phone and I say, "Hello, my name is Yoni. My friend told me I need a La Marzocco, so I'm calling you." And she says, "Cool, where's your coffee shop?" I said, "I don't have one. I'm gonna have one soon. Soon we'll start building it." She goes, "I like your approach. I'm gonna give you a phone number. His name is Mike. He's the LA representative. Give him a call." 20 minutes later, "Hello, Mike. My name is Yoni. I don't have a coffee shop, but I have an escape room business and I need a La Marzocco." The nicest guy in the world, we're still friends. He says, "Sure, meet me in a coffee shop in Los Feliz." So what was supposed to be a 30-minute conversation, we connected so much, we were there for like 4 or 5 hours. And he was explaining, you need a espresso grinder, decaf grinder, drip grinder, a brewer, espresso, pitcher rinser. All these terms are like, wait, what is that? I knew nothing about it. You're entering in a business that you really need to master and learn. In 2020, we started roasting. And pretty much that made the full circle of everything made in-house. We're very famous for our salted vanilla syrup. We sell it a lot on the website and in the store in retail bottles.
For example, we had a very good idea, and partly because escape rooms sort of helped us with that. We already understood, and I think that people who want to start something better think like that from the beginning. We kind of had the brand and branding in mind before we built the first shop, because we already knew it's not going to be one.
Right.
Because sometimes a lot of people think, oh, let me just focus on this one. And I don't know what will happen next. So they
Right.
build something, and it's really hard to multiply. My original question is, I think for people who are starting, it's not only hard to just come up with that branding, but how do you translate your message to your customers when first you don't have like huge PR firms behind you
Sure.
to sort of create that whole thing for you? And in general, like even if, social media gives us so many opportunities, but what do you say to people without saying it to relate your message?
So let's just take Enigma for a moment. So yeah, your coffee. In the worlds of Starbucks and all the specialty coffees, we took coffee from just like diner merp to notes and flavors and aromas and blah 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 and roasting and what part of the world, et cetera, et cetera. It became it's like Scotch at an extreme. But you guys, as you said, you rightfully, as a branding moment, selected that E. Somebody designed the E.
That came from the escape rooms. You see the maze, the E.
Didn't know it was a maze, but it's coming. So already there's a little bit of legacy imbued into the mark. But you're right, it's a distinct E. And yeah, we could probably poll a bunch of people and do a logo study and say put the E with the swoosh and the FedEx and the this and the like Coca-Cola script, and most people might not know the E yet. Yeah. But you are putting down a symbol that sort of not only encapsulates a history of the escape rooms and the coffees and the media and then whatever comes after it, but even now, I would say, yeah, that's a design D. I know the two of you have a design sensibility. You like a refinement. And there's some care that went into that. So you really value artistry. To your point of, what do I say to my customers? Branding is also experiential. It's sensorial. Brands are cultural. There are things that there are design cues and taste cues and, do I belong or not belong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in my very personal experience of the first Enigma that I experienced, which was the coffee shop around the corner from my house, it was like, look at this really cool, young, nice, enterprising couple that put this little corner coffee shop that this neighborhood needed, that brought together a lot of the neighborhood. And, we've witnessed the countless people that have worked there. But I would generally say that there's a sensibility to the people who work there. Make a great damn cup of coffee. Everybody's super nice. It feels, it's not like I'm walking into Verve where I feel like I gotta it's like, I feel at ease there. But I also know that you guys value, there's an elevation to it that's not one that I'm climbing up to, but I can choose to go there. Then there's also, the extensions, and whether it's your content creation, your intellectual pursuits, Yoni similar content creation pursuits, musical, like there's more to it. Nobody's told me any of that narrative. But I get it, I sense it. And that's where the idea of brands as experiences become a thing, because the people working there, how the store is, and listen, your shops could not be simpler. Like there is no bell, no whistle, but there's that E, enigma, and nice people and great coffee.
And that was on purpose, by the way, the simplicity.
Yeah.
Because that's what we wanted. Very
so
simple.
Simplicity then becomes a value.
Yeah.
If you have people working there who need to take 4 hours to get ready to show up to work, maybe not. And I'm really stretching simplicity as a tool.
No, and I'm glad that you're saying that, because this is really those are our values, and I'm glad that they are coming across.
Yeah.
Because we only want people to work who want to work there.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to be miserable and just come to, I'm not going to name names. For us, it was always important that people are happy working here, that they want to be here.
That's one of the big conundrums in brand retail experiences, is that just the economics of the people who are in the store. Like, it's expensive to pay a lot of money for really great retailers. Yep. And yet, they're the person who's interacting with the person buying the thing. I consulted to a brand, which will leave nameless, and I was so stuck on, we could spend all the money in the world redesigning the store, recodifying the value system, retraining people, but if you're not going to pay people enough so that they can stay here long enough, it's not worth it. Because I am interacting with that person, and he, she, they are going to make my experience memorable and make me want to come back. Back to the Hermes story. And yet for them, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, it works.
But when it's something like a cup of coffee or an earring or a Lululemon outfit or whatever it is, that's where I think that where brand and branding and cultures really have to have an opportunity to work their hardest, because that's where your experience becomes trust, becomes something that you want to belong to, that's something you want to signal, outside of luxury, because luxury has its own its own shorthand. But Nike versus Adidas, that's an interesting one. Like, there's a lot of other things that come into play there when I pick a Nike over an Adidas or a...
Why did you pick a Nike over Adidas?
I picked Nike for... I think there's just so much legacy in the Nike brand. Adidas has it too, but it's the Nike that's in my head. From the Just Do It days to the Michael Jordan days. Hello, everybody knows how old I am now. But also the symbol, the aesthetics. Like, I know that fourth stripe on the Adidas is something, and those, Sambas are cool shoes, but I'm bought into the Nike world much more completely than I am the Adidas world.
So would you say that simplicity helps?
I don't know whether it's simplicity or just more...
Simplicity of message, let me put it this way.
Simplicity of message, simplicity of iconography, but also, the Nike stores were early pioneers of those big sort of experiential retail moments, and so I locked into Nike. Another good example of that idea of experiential branding applies to buying a car. Because yes, I want to buy a Mercedes, I want to buy a Ford, I want to buy an Audi, I want to buy a Volkswagen. But you're still largely going to a place, and here's another great example of where the retailer matters, because there's nothing more unpleasant for people than going to buy a car because they're going to be like, negotiating, I got to get you in this car today. What's it going to take to get you in this car today? Like, this pressure. It's a big ticket item, whether it's a 20,000 item or a 200,000 item. It's a big ticket item. There are particularities. Yes, I want it in a color and a thing, and you have to make compromises. But that whole experience is still one that I think has so much room to make those brands sing a lot more. I, years ago, worked on the branding, the brand, and the experience for Aston Martin. And our whole concept was, this has to be like walking into an art gallery. So yes, it needs to be a little, because it is a $300,000 car, which you are specifying every last thing. And you could say, I want it to be the color of my knuckle bent over, and they will paint it that color. So there is an artistry to it. It should all, that work is the car is a work of art. The space should feel like a work of art. The whole thing. But I was like, again, if these people are going to try and what's it going to take to get you in an Aston Martin today, then it all falls apart. So with that, one of the big things for me in branding is, who are the people both in the company and then facing out from the company? Who is the person who sold you that cup of coffee that turned you off versus who are the people at Enigma? And it's funny, we sit outside Enigma every morning with the dogs, and there's this one guy who walks by who's got a bit of a toot. He's a little, just a little attitudey. And he walks the extra 2 blocks to the Starbucks, and he walks past with Starbucks. I was
And
like,
I
that
know
makes
the-
sense. You should be going to the Starbucks. Because there's no...
Yep.
Starbucks, huge brand, incredibly branded, the experience, all of it. I mean, the Starbucks is massive on all fronts. But in its massiveness, it's sort of like anybody and everybody. Like, you are or not, doesn't matter whether you're a Starbucks person or not, versus are you a Enigma? Are you a Verve? Are you a Blue Bottle? When brands become very successful in their all of it, in their culture and their values and the promise that they keep in the experience that they deliver, that then starts kind of bringing it full circle. It starts to create these identifiable, oh, are you a St. Regis person? Are you a Four Seasons person? Or are you a like leading hotels of the world person? Or are you a person who has your own home?
You know what's funny? You brought up hotels. I was listening to Seth Rodin, and he said something really funny. He said, guess what? Like, if a Nike designs a hotel, every single one of us will have a pretty good idea what that hotel
Sure.
is going to look like.
Yeah.
But if Hyatt designs a shoe, you'll have no idea what that shoe is.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting to me.
Could I get a sense of what a Four Seasons shoe is? Probably. Yeah. But a Hyatt, a Sheraton, those are very generalist, for lack of a better word. Like, they're doing a very specific thing, which is to give you a great bed with maybe a little bit of context. You're in, you're out. You know, and that's where the back in the day, the range of Starwood brands, that portfolio was so interesting, because it went from a 4 Points by Sheraton all the way up to, you know, all of the collection, like the luxury collection, which was, you know, one-off hotels. But let's bring it in a notch, and then it was St. Regis. Mm-hmm. And it was like, could I tell you exactly what a 4 Points by Sheraton does? Not really. I know it's kind of maybe motel-y vibey, but I can tell you for sure that a St. Regis is going to be X, Y, and Z vibe. So I love that, you know, we know what a Nike hotel would be, but we don't know what a Hyatt shoe would be. But we do know what a St. Regis shoe could be.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the future of branding, you know, with this whole thing with AI and just like more information that we can possibly consume, with like literally, it seems like the floodgates just opened, like, right. You know. What is the future of marketing and branding, and what are going to be the messaging? Who's going to create that? Is AI going to be responsible? What's going to happen in this brave new world?
Maybe because I'm being self-protective, but as a creative person, I think that like AI is an incredibly powerful tool that is going to make all of our time more effective, because it's going to take care of a lot of sort of base, standard, you know, foundational work. So as that applies to marketing, it might be very effective in sort of understanding what the sentiment is around a particular, whether transportation or luxury bags or fragrance or coffee. You know, it will be able to say like, oh, we're getting a sense that people are concerned around the environmental impact of 2 cups of coffee or 3 cups of coffee a day. And that's even silly, but so that it will tell us that. I still think that emotional connection, cultural connection, that person is still going to be in the store, that when you say, may I please see that thing? And if they're like, oh my God, this is going to look so great on you. I'm so excited to share this with you. Like, oh my God, I wish I could have it too, or I have it and I love it. That no AI in the world is going to do it. Now, you know, back into like the Apple Store world, you know, there are certain brands and certain products for which, when I walk into the Apple Store, and if it's an AI-mediated experience, it's going to tell me, your Mac or your iPhone or your Apple Watch recently logged these searches, and it would be, this is the thing that would be really great for you. You should have that. Yeah. And here it is, and press this button, and boom, boom, boom. But again, if it's a perfume, or if it's a car, or if it's something, again, that really is, that is being part of how I belong, how I exist in the world, where it really pulls on my emotional strings, you're still going to need a person.
You touched upon environment, which is very interesting in this whole conversation, because a lot of brands, of course, are becoming more environmentally friendly, greener. And in general, people, I think, kind of almost just want to, you know, for lack of a better explanation, consume a little less things. Do you think that we're going to have less products per category? People are going to be much more, because, you know, I was watching, have you ever watched The Century of the Self? Oh my God, you're going to love it. It's this incredible documentary about the guy who created PR, public relations. He was Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Oh,
Edward
that explains a lot.
Edward Bernays, and it's incredible.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
It's absolutely incredible, because he says that I wanted to create propaganda in peacetime, but the word was so polluted by the war that I named it public relations instead. Right. And he based a lot of it on Freud's, you know, discovery of the unconscious and subconscious and all that. You know, it's actually fascinating. He talks about exactly what we spoke about, the emotional aspects, and how he single-handedly created desire for the customer. Because before, people used to buy based on need, and then all of a sudden they were buying based on desire, which they did not have before.
Of course.
Which is key, because it's not just something that you want. You didn't even know that you wanted it, and now you want it, and now you're buying it.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it almost feels like we're at a time where we're so full of everything that we've consumed that a lot of people are just saying, okay, wait a second, I only need one of this, one of that. I don't need, like, you know, because it's psychologically tiring to pick. And, you know, it's not good for the environment, and so many other things that kind of, do you think that somehow gonna reflect on what the brands are gonna do?
I would hope so. I mean, it's from the, how do we really need 15 brands of toothpaste or 5 million candle brands? No. All the way up to when I buy the Gucci, Vuitton, Hermes thing, and I see them put it in the box with a tissue, the box, the ribbon, the bag, and I think, I kind of like that. I mean, it's kind of, who doesn't feel a little cool walking out with a big thing that signals, look, I just blew a bunch of money on this thing. But at the same time, I'm like, the bag and the box and the tissue, and then the dust bag and then the tissue that's in the thing, all going to the bin. All of it. All of it. So to me, I hope we go to a place where, like, we don't need this many things, but let's be candid, the businesses say, oh, if we position the toothpaste this way for this particular need that represents a market value of X, they're going to make it, unfortunately. It's capitalism. I'm not knocking it, but there's something about, like, do we really, is it really a market need, or are we creating a market? And then back to our example of, like, the little Vuitton bag all the way up to the steamer trunk, like, I don't want anybody excluded, but if inclusion comes at that price, and that price being the impact on the environment and the consumerism and waste and all that sort of stuff, I'm sort of like, oh, I don't know that I can get behind that brand and branding and buy into that marketing.
And in your personal work, where do you draw the line? Because it quickly becomes almost a moral question, because, you know, all this bombardment of products that people do not need, did not want before, you know, we told them how wonderful it is to have them, and then they spend a bunch of money that they could have spent maybe on something else much more useful. So it creates this whole process, which did not really need to be there per se, and perhaps that person might have been happier without this whole game that they just played. In your personal work, when you work with brands, where are you? Where do you draw a line for yourself, where you say, okay, I'm behind that, but I can be behind this?
On a tactical level, like the example that I just gave, if we're not going to invest in the people who are going to be running these shops and that they stay and deliver all of this branding and the culture that we designed for this particular company, that's just a waste. I mean, we've just wasted a bunch of money. I do feel, so back to the Twitter X world, like if I don't have a really firm belief in the values, whether they're explicitly stated or just expressed and lived, I don't want to do it. And yet, this is by no means wanting to wade into anything sort of political, but we do live in a world where if it's not right according to me, it's wrong. So that sort of binary existence is a problem as well. So again, unpacking what we stand for. As long as you're standing for something that's on the good side of the equation, like, terrorism and exploitation and stuff like that is a problem. And there are businesses that are in that world, like arms and oil and stuff, and tobacco even, pharmaceuticals even. But if I believe that your intent is to do right as well as to do well, you can still be a business.
Right.
I don't have a problem with the business piece. Then we're on the right side of the aisle. But a little bit to echo what we were saying earlier about there's too much stuff and where are we and how do we find our way? It's again, how do we find our way is by what do I stand for? And accepting that people stand for a bunch of different things. And then at the extremes is where we need to sort of quiet things down. But we don't need to narrow the continuum all the way down to here.
Sometimes I almost feel that people kind of have to keep a little bit of their own and say, well, if everybody's buying that, it doesn't mean that I have to, and I can belong without having that thing.
Sure.
I mean, we beat the hell out of poor Louis Vuitton.
Right.
But I can be part of this group. I don't have to have that purse on me to belong. If I have a purse that has no branding, it's important that people find their worth.
You can have your Vuitton bag. The principle that I share with you and you having your Vuitton bag and mine is that I feel great in it, or it was ethically made, or there's a sensibility of design behind it. That's where, and we might unpack a big, can of worms, but it's like H&M, Zara's, Mango's, like fast fashion, big problem. Huge problem because of all of the environmental and just the waste that comes with that sort of stuff. So somebody who shops at H&M could say oh, this was, that it's well designed. There's a design sensibility because it's on trend, but then I would very quickly say well, what's your position on environmental and bad working conditions?
Right, but a lot of people will say, wait a second. Zara, let's say, or H&M is making quote unquote the same shirts, pants, coats that this expensive brand that I cannot afford is making. But now I can have the beautiful thing that I wanted because I wanted not for the label, but the way it looks. I like it. It's
because it's green and everybody's wearing green.
And now I can wear it. But basically, you're saying that I should deprive myself of that right because you know what I mean. There's also that part of argument.
I'm just saying, check yourself. Check yourself. Is the desire to wear green because everybody else is green more important to you than the moral, the environmental, the working conditions, all of the stuff? Because if it is, great. I don't agree with that, but okay. And in the same way, all the way to the other end, to the Louis Vuitton, I was like, let's just cinch it up. It's good. The business is strong. It is really strong. Do we need to have every single solitary little bit of stuff available, And yeah, it might cut out some people, but when you do earn that extra marginal dollar that allows you to not buy the matchbook, but rather the candle, and we stop selling the matchbooks and you get the candle, it will be that much more gratifying. It's the consumerism piece that is the huge problem. Like, I have to, I must consume, I want, I have to buy. I need the creamy peanut butter. I need the creamy peanut butter with light crunch. I need the light crunch with a swirl of marmalade. It's just like, no, you don't need any of it.
Yeah.
Any of it. So what do you want of it? Like, obviously there are needs, like I've got to be clean and healthy and all that sort of stuff. But when it gets into like choice, decisions that are based on choice, like, check yourself. What are your values? What do you want to like uphold in the world and operate in the world, and then align with the thing that's closest to that.
Right, but there's also another problem is that not always the brands are being truthful.
Sure, but
And
now you can call them out.
Well, not always, because I mean, you have to do research. Do you have time for that?
Or you can just at them on X or at them on Instagram or TikTok them till they're. I mean, look at Drew Barrymore. She was like taken down in a second.
No. True. That's a personal brand, slightly
Right.
different. But what I'm saying is more in terms of like things they put on the labels is not always what's really there. Like, they say 100% juice, and there is zero of that juice, and the FDA still approved it because it can't be bothered with the juices.
Sure.
It worries about the drugs and like other
Yeah.
things. So it's almost like you have so much information, and you not only have to decide what you're aligning yourself with in terms of your values, in terms of your desires, but you also have to simmer through all this untruths.
Yeah. But I mean, I think he also, like, if you're spending a whole bunch of money or you're putting it in your person, like, that's where there's a little bit of, this is where I think social media and the sort of flattening out of access has served us well, is that you do want to maybe not sort of trust so blindly. Mm-hmm. And what does 100% juice actually mean? And, if you look at a certain brand of flavored soda water that is very popular, that is very inexpensive, you unpack the like from concentrate, and then in that there are like 4 ingredients. You're like, this is 47 consonants, no vowels, I don't know how to read them. Not good for you. Whereas the other brand that says soda water and grapefruit juice, period. So I agree, like, we do live in an era where we have at least access to understand some of the information. Maybe we have to search for it. We can raise our voices, and they can be heard. And one again, and I'm banging the drum, like, if I'm going to stand in my principles or in my values, then maybe I do have to like read the label a little bit more closely before I put it, in, or put it on my person, and then everybody can make an exception. Like, damn, I want that green coat, and it's $20 at H&M. And I can say, like, okay, I'm gonna buy it. It's a problem. I'm calling it out. Yes, I'm imperfect, and I want to look cute. And then I'm gonna either donate the code, or I'm gonna like dispose of it in a certain way, and I'm never gonna shop at H&M again. I mean, it doesn't have to be binary, and everything is imperfect. But it's just, again, how you approach it, and how transparent and how unprincipled you are about it, whether you're a brand, a personal brand, an individual, whatnot.
A personal brand is a whole different
That's a
conversation.
whole
Oh my
nother
God!
universe.
Like,
But the
need another
principles are
hour
the
for it.
same. Is like, what are your values?
Yeah.
Like, hey, Drew, you got smacked.
But speaking, what are your values? But also all these aspects of, are you entertaining? What's your personality?
Sure.
Are people relating to you? Because you can have great values and nobody will be interested in you. And how much do you push? How much you enhance what you are in order to fit that what people want.
Of course, this is where it becomes supply and demand. Kardashians started out as a show about like a quirky American family, and they were like, and now it's like about how, I mean, talk about there's a brand that I find absolutely fascinating in a business and a whole thing. But they went from like, you know, how they were positioned, like those early seasons of the Keeping Up with the Kardashians, opened like a 1950s sitcom. And it was, the contrast was this like divorced family and his kids, her kids, our kids, the whole thing. It was like modern day Brady Bunch. And now it's just like what it is.
Speaking of evolving too.
Oh, yeah. And their personal brands have completely evolved because suddenly they were like, ooh, we want a bigger bite of that glamour pie. Or, wow, we got to see them go from, I don't know, like, were they cool? Were they interesting? Like, I mean, they've always been fascinating and in the discourse, but then we went, I mean, there's this funny meme where like you see all of them from the latest promo or maybe the last season, and it's the before and after of their faces, and you're like, wow, we've been on that journey. It's
okay to have that cringy moments and then grow into something
like we were all an awkward teenager. We were all a like toddler and a teenager, and then we were in our 20s, we were in our 30s, we were in our 40s. Like it's.
I feel it's important for people to know that it's okay in personal brand, in brand as a brand.
100%.
It's okay to go through those stages.
You have to go through those stages. Nobody became the thing that they are off the bat.
Yep.
Nobody.
Yep.
Nothing has been that thing. Sometimes it's been a colossal flop and you learn from that. Sometimes it's like you ride a success wave, but it's almost in sort of a sense of summary, like you as a business come up with a product that you want to sell because you see an opportunity or because you want to join a marketplace, and you go like, this is how my product is going to be distinct. Spend some time exploring what motivated you to notice the difference, to launch this product, to notice the differences, and what do you want to like stand for? Like what makes you, when you're accepting the award for best coffee or best designer or best, what do you want said about you? And sit in that, and then push the product out there. Get to know the people who are reacting to it. Get to know the people who are loving it. Get to know the people who are hating it. And then let a couple of years go by and then say like, are those values still relevant? Are they still there? Do I need to sharpen them? Do I need to drop one? Do I need to pull one up? Whether because of me or because of the market. And then it keeps evolving. These things they're living beings, you know. The Gucci from the 50s to the Gucci from Tom Ford to Alessandro to, I mean, I think today is the next designer. Mm-hmm. Like, there's been a through line of Gucci-ness to it. But, and there will always be the bit, and there will always be the bamboo handle, and there will be that iconography. But they've changed, and it's changed because the market's changed, or the business wants to change, or whatnot. But it's really, at the end of the day, you're just in discourse. You're in discourse with who you are as a business person or a producer. You're in discourse with the people who are buying you, or representing you, or becoming you. And like anything, you talk it out, you understand, you pivot. Maybe you don't. That's okay. You say why you didn't, or why you did. Green coat. I really wanted the green coat. Looks so cute. But this is how I'm fixing it. You'll F up for sure. Every brand has done. Every single brand has. I mean, Apple Newton, hello. Like certain collections in fashion, every car brand has had a colossal flop. You learn from it and you keep going. And how you keep going is because you're like, oh yeah, we need to come back to these principles. Come back to them either to carry them forward because we dropped the ball, or that, like at any cost we must be relevant. Doesn't serve us anymore. You just keep going.
How do you define success?
I define success by how close I get to the intentions I've set.
And for you, you don't care about recognition by others, that doesn't go into or comparison to...
Comparison never, ever, ever, ever. I can only be successful as I am. and as I want to be. In some cases, there might be something, that thing that you did became the thing that we all have, or something like that. But it's about how I want to be in the world. And, you know, I think for me personally, it's very challenging to compare, because no two conditions are alike.
Well, I think it's amazing you feel that way, because I think almost we're trained from school years to constantly compare ourselves
of course.
So we kind of take ourselves out of constantly comparing and feel accomplished that we don't compare ourselves to anybody anymore. So I feel it's such a lucky position to have.
No, and the challenge that comes with it is that, like, you're like, ooh, do I feel successful? Like, do I have the thing? Do I have the Vuitton trunk? Do I have the green coat from, you know, Brunello? Or do I, you know, those easy metrics? Or did I launch something that millions of people bought or wanted or something? But for me, it's more like, did I meet the goal that I set for this thing? And if there's the side effect of the thing that I did.
Just to finish it off, an advice if you can give to someone who is starting a personal brand or a brand, a piece of advice that you think can really help them.
Make sure your intentions are as pure as they can be. And that can be as, I want to make $1 billion, all the way over to, I want to make sure that, you know, everybody in the world is aware of the impact of bees. Or I want to knit a blanket a week, whatever it is, because I love what that means. The blanket is a craft and people are going to love it, and it's so personal and intimate. The bees are the connective tissue of ecosystems, or $1 billion is $1 billion. Like, just clarity. And then stay in that clarity all the time. Take all of the advice that you want. Don't act on all of it, because then that's endless. But know what your intentions are. And then, you know, the 1.5 piece of advice is give yourself guardrails on those intentions of, like, what do you want to stand for? What does this thing want to do? Before it's something that's a commodity that's purchased, or a thing that's experienced, or what does it want to do? It wants to bring tranquility, or it wants to be the most fun we've had in every day, or it wants to, like, demolish the competition. No judgment. But just know that that's the thing. Because when you are faced with a bunch of advice, you use those values or those principles or those sentences or whatever as a filter. And then you say, nope, that fits in, that didn't. No judgment. And then, did you live into your intentions every day? And if you did, great, success. Ba-ding.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Wow. It was, again, as always, amazing to have someone so inspiring. And we own a company that we care a lot about the brand, but still hearing someone who is a brand specialist talk about brand is a completely different perspective, and so, like, I already got a few ideas about what we could.
I didn't get a chance to ask Eduardo any personal questions because we were so deep in this uncovering, like, all those topics, which was very interesting.
Yeah,
I already told him that we have to have him for round 2.
Sure.
Because it's just a lot
I'll give you a little
to...
clue, everybody. The personal question I want to ask him related to his last name will be continued in episode 2 with Eduardo, right? You know, we try to have people on the show here that, beside their specialty, there's something, there is, you call it whatever, X factor about them. Eduardo, from the first time we met him at Enigma, you could feel
100%.
that presence in the room when he's there, right?
100%. And also, I told him it's this fun the idea behind this whole channel, and just behind having those conversations, is having those unique perspectives on things from people, from inspiring people, from successful people, people who, you know, have done something in their life, but they all have those different perspectives that are so fun, and some things are just illuminating, even though it's things that we talk about a lot, and then he says something, it's like, wow, wait a second, let me think about it. It's very fun like that.
Yeah, it was very inspiring to hear how you worked with Aston Martin.
Oh my God, I was
and
surprised.
so many
I didn't know.
actually, I mean, we know him personally, so there's so many other brands.
Plus, he was running to place. He's giving a speech, so I couldn't hold him any longer. Otherwise, we probably would have sat for another hour and a half.
No, we're very grateful
100%.
that he came that day.
100%.
That he needs to give a speech elsewhere and came to Enigma of Success.
Yeah.
We're really, really grateful. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, viewers. Please hit subscribe, share if you feel this can inspire someone. And
Till next time.
till next time.